Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Heather. Heather is here today to talk about the importance of pivoting in your life if things aren't working, how she takes time for personal development and uses the word no to empower herself. Heather is founder and CEO of GoGoDone, a productivity and marketing company for solopreneurs and freelancers. The community works side by side on their own businesses in coworking sessions, sprints, and a premier community of launching and growing your own business. She has over 15 years in marketing and coaching in her background, along with mental health. Welcome, Heather. How are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Sabrina. It's fabulous.
Yes. Thank you for being here. I so appreciate ladies like yourself who understand the importance of being live and saying hello and speaking and storytelling and sharing your background and really connecting and diving into community and communication with pulling people towards us and really building a strong network around us of like-minded people. So I so appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day, I'm sure, to hang out with myself and the community. I want to thank those that are already jumping on live. I so appreciate that. If you could share this wherever you are watching us so that we can get more eyes on Heather and the content here. We would so appreciate that. So if you're watching us on the replay right now, you can also share us wherever you are watching us, but just make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're watching so that we can say hello and see where you're catching us on the replay. So Heather, where are you from?
I'm in Eugene, Oregon.
I love it. Born and raised?
Raised. I was born in Florida, actually, close to your neck of the woods. I was actually born in Key West, so a little further south when my dad was in the Navy.
From Florida, from Key West to Oregon.
Yes.
Oregon. How did you get there?
I came before I turned one. So it was my older siblings were getting school aged, and my mom wanted to have us settle down somewhere with good schools and, not move around and be a Navy brat. So we left the military and we landed very far away. Far away, but in a great spot.
I don't think you could get too much further away unless you were in Washington. It's funny. My son's grandparents, it's not really funny, but my son's grandparents live in Washington, the very tip of Washington. Yeah. So when he travels to go see them, which he hasn't gone since COVID, but when he used to, the flight is like going cross country, like all the way.
Yep.
It's equivalent to like going into another country in general.
Really is.
Sometimes. That's so funny. Very cool. Well, I would love to dive into what you do. I know that you do a plethora of things right now, but before we get into all the goodness of what that is, I would love just a little bit of a backstory. One of the things that our listeners love hearing is stories of triumph, stories of darkness to light, stories of pivot. So I'd like to kind of hear, some of your journey, some of your story of where you had some pivots, where you had some changes that got you on the path that you're on right now.
Yeah. I had one kind of longer drawn out pivot. Sometimes there's that aha moment, and there's a small aha moment at the beginning, but really the process of the pivot, the aha is almost the easy part. So my first aha, my big challenge that I want to talk about today was really around setting and achieving goals. And so I was working in marketing, and I was really kind of a one-woman show. So I knew, and I'm good at reading and looking everything up, and right, and you got to do a little bit of everything when you're marketing for a small business or as a solopreneur. So I know what I should be doing, quote unquote, and I know what good metrics look like, and I'm just not executing the way I wanted to execute. Like I should be posting more on social, and yet I'm not, and there's procrastination, all these different things. So I'm a one-woman show, so I'm kind of getting away with it because I'm the only one who knows about marketing. As I know about marketing, I'm like, I'm kind of mediocre. And I'm like, I'm smart and I'm ambitious and I'm driven and I'm putting hours in, but I'm not getting the results I want. And then the self-talk starts to like crop up where you're just like, well, maybe I'm not a hard worker, or maybe I don't care, or maybe I'm not good at this, or whatever, right? We're all familiar with our inner critic. So inner critic is getting more and more fodder to be like, this isn't working, you're not doing a good job, and all this stuff, right? And so I'm like, okay, next week I'm going to nail it. I'm going to try harder, right? And that right there, the like 20 millionth week in a row where I said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to try harder. And that phrase, try harder, all of a sudden, that was my aha moment. I'm like, you know what I'm going to say next week? I'm going to say next week, dang, I screwed up again. I should try harder next week. I can't say this any more weeks. Like it was just in perpetuity. I'll just try harder. It's like, oh, I didn't eat healthy this week. I'll try harder next week. And I didn't fill in the blank this week. I'll try harder tomorrow. I'll try harder next week. Try harder is now a signal to me that I'm screwing it up. Like you're trying the wrong thing. It shouldn't be that hard. It just shouldn't be that hard. You definitely hard work, that's involved. But if it's try, fail, stop trying that same thing. You've got to try something different, which is why pivot is in the title of this, chat that we're having, because you don't try harder, try something different. And so I had that moment of like, okay, whatever I'm doing, trying harder is not going to work. So what do I do? And that became the longer, slower, investigative, reflective pivot. So, but I think that big takeaway for me is like that inner critic was just rolling, and the whole like I just have to get there, and that push and that push and that push. But what does that do to you psychologically? What does that do to you emotionally? What does that do at the end of the day when you feel like a failure and you're like, I just have to gut it up and find more energy? Like how many of us have like a giant surplus of energy right now? Thank you very much. Nobody. Like nobody. And if you do, like send me your number because I need to borrow a couple $1 million. Like, forget it. Like, so we're all trying way too hard already. So try something differently. And so for me, what I found out is, I don't know if I would hope that folks have been playing around with Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies quiz, which is a lot of fun. But this was something I figured out and then found the quiz, which was a lot of fun, to be like, oh, I thought of this too. But she's definitely leagues ahead of me, thought of it ages ago. But it's this idea about how you respond to internal and external expectations. So my internal expectation would be, I'm going to go for a walk every morning, and I'm going to eat a salad for dinner every night, and I'm going to post 20 times on social media for my client this week, and whatever. The external expectation is the boss says it's due on Friday. It's like show up to the meeting on time and meet with other people and all of those things. And so everybody responds to different things in different ways. I respond incredibly poorly to internal expectations and incredibly strongly to external expectations. So it's called Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies quiz. So if anybody wants to just plug that into the internet, 4 Tendencies, the number 4, and then tendencies, it'll pop right up. It's not a long quiz, and it's a great self-reflective tool. Personality tests are never the truth, but a great self-reflective tool. Okay. So once I figured out that if somebody else asked it of me, I'm in. And if I ask it of me, I can't do it. Like, not can't totally, but pretty much can't. That was really hard for me to deal with, because I believe I should, if I set a goal for myself, like I should be able to achieve it, right? I'm important to me, like for real, like, but that's just not how my system works. And so if it is important to me, then I get somebody else involved and I have somebody on the other end. So I was telecommuting and all of this. And so I had to build out a structure. And so my companies actually came out of this realization to be like, I need places to show up to at a certain time. I need to state what I'm working on so that somebody says you didn't get it done, right? People to confess to when I procrastinate and the whole thing. But I created this external structure for me so that when I set a goal, I could figure out how to do it. So it'll look different for every person. But a lot of us are these people who respond really well to external stuff, right? This is why people have workout buddies. This is why there's yoga studios. It's not everybody doing it alone at home. So kind of having this idea and this perspective shift of you are already enough, you are already working probably too hard, try something different. Don't try harder, try something different was really huge for me and really huge for my self-esteem and my self-talk. Once it was like different tactics. You don't need to change your tactics, and then you can move forward. If it doesn't work, it was an experiment. Try something else, try something else, try something else. And so that's just kind of one of the things we talk a lot about in my community is giving each other space for that and that like reminder to each other. Yeah. You don't need to try harder, try something different, or take a break. Sometimes that's all you need to.
Yeah. What's the difference between, or where's the gap, I guess, between trying harder and patience?
Yes. So for me, I would say it depends on what the result is, right? So if we're trying harder and how many times it hasn't worked. So sometimes things, if you're chipping away at something and you're seeing improvement, patience is called for, right? So if I want to be more physically active and I can get in and I manage to get in some 5-minute walks every day, that's movement, right? If I want to be more physically active and I still can't get out of bed, like try something different, make a doctor's appointment, try different tactics, right? So if you see movement, then trying harder, maybe, having patience. If you're developing a new habit, repetition is important. If you're able to do some repetition, keep going. If it's not working, then try something different. So if you see movement, that's different. But if there's zero movement, and what's happening in the self-talk, what's happening in here, where are your expectations, right? That could be a big thing. And I'm big on saying no and setting realistic expectations because sometimes that can just blow up on us. Like maybe you're doing a really great job, but because you're like, I should be posting 20 times on social media and I only posted 3 times. It's like, maybe that's okay. Like why 20? Is that a reasonable expectation? Okay. I should be working out every day. Well, how come? Is that a reasonable expectation? How many kids you got? How many jobs you holding down? Like maybe it's not a realistic expectation. Or maybe your expectation of what exercises needs to change. Maybe 10 minutes of yoga is rock star status for you. What are your expectations? Are they realistic?
To you, is the inner critic and the self-talk the same thing?
For me personally, yeah, there's just kind of one internal voice in good moods and bad moods. And I feel like the expectation and the overwhelm will determine the voice of that inner voice. And then my physiology will determine that inner voice. I've gone from one day to the next with nothing changing that I can tell. And it's been a good day and a horrible day or vice versa. And I'm like, so why am I so upset today? And I'm like, what's changed? Yesterday was great. Today sucks. What the heck has changed? Usually a hormonal shift, lack of sleep, something like, you know what I mean? I don't need to make a different decision in life. I don't need to change. I don't need to pivot. This is not a pivot. This is a take a nap, or this is a let your, cycle into the next phase. Your hormones will only be in this place for so long. Like understand that, throw in some more self-care if you can, or whatever it is that you need to do. So monitoring that physiology and then, and seeing how that impacts that inner voice. Some people might perceive that inner critic as something totally different too. Multiple voices, like a cheerleader and a critic and all of that. I kind of perceive my inner monologue as one constant, it's part of me, not something outside myself.
And then how personally for you, how have you, or in the past or currently, altered your self-talk to be more positive? Because I think that that's an important thing when you're talking about entrepreneurship or solopreneurship is that self-talk. So how are you dealing with that as far as changing or reframing?
Yeah. So that takes me back to the expectations piece. So number one, challenge your expectations and see if they're realistic. And one of the very like nuts and bolts, non-sexy, emotional, this is like a nuts and bolts thing. So one of the things that I do is I offer a sprint to my community members. And during that sprint, I have a structure for kind of taking a project. Oh, I have a little bit of a dog issue in the background. So sorry. Sometimes people come in the door, you're not ready for it.
It happens. No big deal.
So I offer the sprint, and the first stages of the sprint are to list out what you're doing and get really specific, and then time estimate it and to see how long it's going to take. And if it's longer than 2 hours, you have to break it down further because we're really bad at time estimation. So a lot of times when negative self-talk comes up, I'm not doing enough, whatever the doing is, at home, personally, at work, at whatever, whenever not enough comes up and it's an actual task, right? I'm enough as a human being is a different thing. But when you're like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not achieving enough, I'm not whatever, then you list that out and say, how much time does it really take to do this? So I'll go back to 20 posts a week on social media. Let's actually get really granular on that and see how much time it takes. And when your time estimation comes up at 80 hours a week, the voice that says you're not good enough is like, oh, whoops. So you don't have 80 hours a week to do that. So then that just like blows up that inner critic for a hot minute and puts that voice in a more realistic place. And then you get to flip into the problem solving mode. So if I need the 20 posts a week, and if I do, how do I get there without spending 80 hours? And when we move from judgment of ourselves into problem solving, those are different areas of the brain and they're different emotional states. So judging yourself is a really crappy emotional state that I'm sure everybody's familiar with. Problem solving can be exciting, and our brains love a little a puzzle to figure out, right? Yeah. And so that can be like exciting and trying something new and exploring and research, right? It's just a different way of being in your own body. So moving from this self-judgment and criticism, having a dose of reality, and then moving into that problem solving mode is a really nice path to take with the inner critic. Again, this is, some self-judgment stuff. If you're looking at your value as a human being in general, that's a different journey. But when it comes to what I run into is so many people who are like, I don't do enough. I never get my to-do list done. I'm not good enough. Fill in the blank, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not getting done what I want to get done. And it's like, if I took my average colleague's list and took their to-do list and mapped them all out in that level of detail, it would be like 2,000 hours a week. Our expectations are ridiculous and we don't really realize it, right? And until you pare that down or get it in this actual like number of hours and it's more than you're conscious in a day, and you have a family and you have hobbies, it really just revolutionizes how you look at your calendar. Now, it is really disappointing because you're like, I can imagine myself doing all these millions of different things and doing them beautifully because your skill set. I mean, that was a big thing for me. It's like, I could imagine myself being a rock star at all these things. I got to pick one or two. Yeah. So I have the skill set to be a rock star at multiple things. I have the time allotment to pick one or two.
Yeah.
That is a frustrating thing. And I actually use the word mourning. I have a lot of polymaths. So people who are super interested in everything and want to do everything and love everything. So we talk about this idea of mourning, having to say no to a project. We think, oh, just toughen it up and say no. And it's like, sometimes it's really sad to say no. Okay. Short-term sad though, because long-term sad is being overwhelmed all the time until the end of time. That's not a good way to live your life, right? So you got to like suck it up and do that short-term sad of saying no and letting go of those dreams, right? But in the long run, you're a happier person. You're, calmer person. You have time for your loved ones. You have, a realistic to-do list. You don't open up your email like cringing and it's like it's such a much better place to be in. But that short-term saying no can be super, super tough, especially if there's somebody that you love on the other end of that ask.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of curious when, as far as people not knowing how to estimate the timing of things, do you find that some things are different than other things as far as managing your time and time expectations, where people think some things take longer than they should, and then other things that they think take a long time actually take no time? Do you find that?
Yeah. So the everything's going to be different for every individual, but some trends that I see. Answering email, you should time yourself for answering each email. Some of them are quick, yes, no, right? But a lot of us will take 20 minutes to answer an email. And if you open your inbox and there's 20 emails in there, do the math, right? This is more of that setting realistic expectations.
Yeah.
So people will underestimate that. We underestimate, what we don't factor in is the brain downtime, our brain breaks, going to the bathroom, and then you make a cup of tea. Sometimes 10 or 15 minutes will elapse in there, which is good time, which is good break time. But we don't factor that into our day. We will schedule meetings back to back to back to back, and then cram in a project and whatever. So that brain downtime, if you don't schedule the downtime, it comes out of one of your projects. So that usually will come out of your proactive stuff. Like, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to fill in the blank. Anything that doesn't have like a blazing hot deadline, we underestimate those because we think we can be on, and we think we can be 100% on for the time block that we put in our calendar. And that's almost never true, especially if it's later in the day. But I think that the email is the big time suck. And then also anything that has to do, when we do these sprints and we have projects, it depends on the type of project. If it's to, build 10 more widgets and you've built 100 before, you know exactly how long it takes. So then time estimation is a different thing. If you're like, I want to, as soon as the word research is in there, who knows how long that takes, right? And so when you're at the beginning of a project, you can kind of scope it, but the second you learn something, it could blow your entire plan. So if you have something with a lot of unknowns, like, until you can learn and scope it, you can't make an accurate time estimation, which is okay. But you need to block off your time and understand it's not that you're going to get it done. It's that you're going to spend time scoping it. And then you can figure out what it's going to take to get done. So when somebody says write a blog article, you can't, if you know the topic and how long it's going to be and who it goes to, perhaps you can time estimate that. If I want to write a new article for my blog and that is the scope of my goal, it's going to take me at least a half an hour to figure out what I know who, because it's my blog, but it's going to take me a half an hour to figure out what I'm going to write and, scoping that out. And do I need to research it? So you schedule time for scoping that project and understanding what it's going to take. And then you can block it out on your calendar. But in the beginning of anything that's bigger than, I think, 2 hours, that first, and it's going to be a half an hour if done well, unless it's a pretty tiny thing, but those things mushroom like crazy. They can mushroom like crazy. And so understanding that if it's not something you've done a bunch of times before, it's going to be hazy how long it takes. And sometimes it goes right away. I've written a 1,500 word blog post in an hour, and then it's taken me 2 weeks to do another one. Right. So some of those kinds of things are like so hazy. Right. Yeah. So watch out for the email and time box that, or be intentional with how you respond. Because sometimes you can respond to an email and say, I have you on my schedule for next Tuesday to take a look at this, right? And that takes those, right? You're not the most frustrating thing for somebody on the other end of that email is crickets, is getting nothing. You're like, did you even get my email? Like, I can be put off almost indefinitely, but I can't be, ghosted. I will be like, so I sent you an email 3 days ago. Are you alive? What's going on? I'm that persistent person. So kind of understanding that and really reflecting on how much time you're taking doing that. And let me tell you this, if there's something you're nervous about doing that you find in that kind of procrastination bucket, because you're putting yourself out there, or it's something you're scared to do, that email you can answer all day. You can be so productive on email all day and never get to the scary thing. So email tends to be that big time suck.
Yeah, definitely. I can 100% relate to that. One of the things that I did early on when I was learning boundaries was I had, in order to make it easier for myself, and this inner talk that I have of offending everybody. So doing really long sugar coating stuff to get all the things in, and realizing how much time that was wasting, is I, in my signature for probably like 2 years, had in my signature something to the funny, humorous effect of, I apologize if this is right to the point, but I got shit to do, something like that.
Yeah, I like it.
This allotted me, whether they read it or not, just in my mind, it gave me permission to just be able to be like 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Versus like all of this like extra, hello, how are you? Good morning. How are the kids? Oh, mama, how about these?
Sometimes we take care of people who have not asked us to take care of them.
Yes.
As empathetic women, I mean, that's our role in life, right? We've been indoctrinated with that. And so So
Yeah.
sometimes like, I don't need that. Have you ever gotten a short and to the point email and been like, that lady is a jerk? Like, has that ever happened? You
No.
know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
And so we're so mean to ourselves,
Yeah.
but you would be like, oh, I like this email. She's short and to the point. It's like,
Yes.
you know
Yes.
what?
100.
How
100.
would you respond if somebody sent this email to you? You'd be like, yep, thank you for not giving me 20 questions, you know?
Yes, 100. So that, that was one thing that I did early on, through my journey of first entrepreneurship and then second healing as a person, was just giving myself that little leeway to really feel more confident and just quickly going through my emails.
Yeah.
Because I do totally agree with that. There's so much time that could be wasted with that. And then I was gonna add something else to that, but I don't remember. I want to talk about procrastination. I have my viewpoint on procrastination, but I want to hear, your thoughts on it. Good, bad, work through. Is it a thing? What you do in your world and what you kind of teach in
Yeah.
your arena with your clients.
So again, back to the sprint that we offer, because so much of the structure is in there. So I have a discussion question in there. So I've heard a lot of people talk about procrastination. This is where this is coming from. So I've heard, and we do like discussion questions and stuff. So I've heard a lot of procrastination stories, which is shaped. I have my own journey, which goes one direction, but I've heard a lot of stories. So this is where my kind of philosophy is coming from. So I feel like procrastination falls into two buckets of types. There's avoidant and there's obsessive. Sometimes you have both. Yay, that's an intense project for you. But there's the avoidant stuff where it's like, okay, I got to write this book. But you know what? Like the kids need homemade dinner instead of pulling some out of the freezer. And, my boss asked for this thing. Maybe I'll put a little extra something. I've got to do this thing. I got to take care of other people. I've got to do, or I'm just Netflixing tonight because I'm too stressed out. I can't do it. Right. So we're avoiding. We're not going to do the work at all. And so that'll crop up. And that's one type. And then the other type would be the obsessive, which is I should write another chapter, or I should research this because maybe I need to add a paragraph about such and such, right? The perfectionism lives in this obsessive, so you never ship your work. You just make it better and better and better. Are you making it better? Like that's the question, right? We need a market test to know, and so on and so forth. So I like looking at it like the first step for procrastination is to identify that you are procrastinating and in what way you are procrastinating, because that reality check. So my try harder reality check, right? I had to get to the point where I was like, you need to be 100% clear and aware that trying harder is not going to work for you. You need to be 100% clear and aware that I am procrastinating. And now let's flip over into problem solving mode. What's creating this desire to procrastinate? And how am I going to work with it? What am I going to try that's different? What am I going to try that's, new? Most procrastination comes from fear or the unknown. Like, I don't know how to proceed. So a lot of times you procrastinate on something, and when you sit down and you map it out, you're like, oh, okay, I got this. Like, write a book is huge, but what about journal for an hour on the, what I'm like a pro on that I would love to write a book on. Right? Like I can do that, but write a book is like, what? Right? So what do I do? So there's that what do I do piece of it. And then the rest of it is just that fear of being judged. And there's a lot of different ways to deal with that. But you gotta be aware of it and then flip into that problem solving analysis and problem solving. And what am I going to do? Do I need to just break it down, or do I need to deal with the fear, the judgment fear that's associated with this? I want to hear your take on procrastination though, because I'm still a student.
I remember what I was going to say again, and now I just forgot again. No. Procrastinate. I don't believe in procrastination.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, my niche is time management and procrastination. And I believe that time can't be managed. So a myth, and procrastination doesn't exist. And the reason I don't believe procrastination exists is because procrastination is everywhere all the time. So to me, my theory is in order for something to be like an issue, you have to be able to fix the issue. Like I believe that every problem has a solution. And procrastination, there is no solution. And the reason there's no solution for the word is because at any given moment, we're all procrastinating. So like you and I are on a podcast right now. We're both furthering our business, being seen, the authority thing. We're working on our business right now as we speak. But right now as we speak, when we're being productive, we are clearly to the entire world being productive. We are at this moment procrastinating on a whole bunch of shit in our lives, right? We could be exercising right now. We could be working on another aspect of our business. We could be writing that book. We could be, there's a million other things that we could be doing. So when you say yes to one thing, you are literally saying no and or procrastinating on all the other stuff that should be done. So in my world, what I teach is attention versus energy. So where is the attention going? So it's not bad. Like procrastination is like a bad word to me.
Right.
It's where's your attention going? So like, let's get rid of the thoughts of we're lazy and we're a procrastinator and so sad. I'm a loser and I'm a victim. I procrastinate. Instead, it's no, get your priorities straight and let's focus on the things that you need to focus on and make sure that you're focusing on them in the arena of when you have energy. So I concentrate a lot on where is your energy at. So for me, I am a total morning person. I get up at 5 o'clock every single morning. I work out and I'm sitting down at my computer between 7 and 7:30 every single day, ready to work until around 1 o'clock, which is around my lunchtime. I take a 1 hour solid lunch where I do not work. And then right around that time, I get a little bit tired. So this is when I have a bunch of stuff in my world that I consider like zombie tasks where I don't need any brain power for them.
Yeah.
So I am procrastinating in my business during that time. I'm not working on my business during normal business hours. I'm doing just a bunch of zombie stuff that I don't need my mind to work with. And then right around 5 or 6 o'clock, I'm like back at it and I can go until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, 100 miles an hour again. So it's understanding your energy and then making sure that you're focusing on the right things.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Really
I want to add, I think you bring up, I love that you talk about energy because I also want to just throw out there, especially after these COVID years, if you're anywhere near a burnout space, your energy, your total capacity for energy in any one day can be really diminished, substantially diminished.
Yeah.
And I get this, if I can book it in my calendar, I can do it. And for a lot of people, it's just, I think I've done a lot of prioritizing and scheduling rest or downtime activities.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I say all the time is like, there's no uptime without downtime. So if you have a schedule that has no downtime in it, that's it. You're done. And so sometimes people will get into that, like you're talking about, that self-punishment in that area. And it's like, go take a nap, like give yourself permission to take a nap. And not everybody has that option, right? But I work from home. Like I have that option.
Yeah.
Like, you need to just go take a nap because you won't do anything, zombie work or not. Like when you've hit the wall, you're done. You can't do anything. So I love that you talk about energy and talk about, and embracing your own internal clock, which again, if you're in a corporate job or whatever, you don't always get to do that. But it's like, well, what time of day are you most, what kinds of tasks and at what time of day should you be doing them for your own personal clock, which I think is really important. I can't do anything analytical. I'm with you. I'm a morning person, can't do anything analytical after about maybe 3 p.m. something. So I schedule my tasks accordingly, but can't do it otherwise. It's just, so again, it's like, just be real with yourself. Is it working? Is it not? And then go from there. But I love it. And it takes away the danger of building an identity around being a procrastinator, because if we see it as part of our identity, we live it. So I like it. I'm with you. Let's banish it. It doesn't exist.
Yes. Yes. So the thing that I remembered that I so appreciated you saying was, or just the entire concept of the podcast that you're putting together here, is this thought process of pivoting. And one of the things that you pointed out that I so appreciated was this time thing of, I remember when I was first like organizing my business, right? We all jump into entrepreneurship. We have no idea what we're doing unless you're like working with a coach right away, which most people aren't. And And you're just like going around, just doing all the things. And then you're like, wait a minute, I'm like all over the freaking place. So then there comes a point in your entrepreneurship world where you're like, I got to organize. Like I have to have like a thing that I do every Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. So I remember when I was first putting together like the list of all of the stuff that I'm going to do on Monday and then on Tuesday. And it was long. It was like, and the like anxiety that I started to get over the course of like weeks or months or whatever it was, of like recognizing like in my head, like you said, I feel like I should get all of this stuff done or be able to, but then realistically just not understanding the time that it takes to like answer an email, for instance.
Yeah.
But what I appreciate also, not only you mentioning that, which is brilliant, but the idea of pivoting. So I can't tell you how many times during my journey I have pivoted, changed, tweaked this like dead set, typed out, beautiful Monday through Sunday, scheduling that I have for myself. And I've taken stuff off and scratched things off and just completely deleted and never do again. These things that I thought I had to do in order to be successful. And the cool thing about it is we're able to do that. Like you can set something up, you can work it for a few days or a few weeks, realize it doesn't work, and then you can change it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think for a solopreneur in particular, understanding why you're doing it and what makes it successful or not. So what is the return on your investment?
Yeah.
And being conscious about that and saying, back to, should I post on social media 20 times a week? Absolutely not for a solopreneur, by the way. But that's one of the things I talk with my solopreneurs a lot about. It's like, how much is enough and what is the return that you want to get? And so I'll have like people posting like crazy on social media, but they don't have an email list. And it's like, how are you going to sell your $10,000 coaching package on social media? No, you need a lead magnet and right. You want these other pieces to your strategy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what am I doing? And is it providing a return on my investment? And why am I doing it? Am I on 7 different social channels and chats because people say you should? Do I need to be on TikTok? No. Does somebody else? Maybe. Like, let's think about that. Don't get on TikTok because everybody else is on TikTok. Who's actually there and for what reason, right? What are you selling and what are you doing? And is it the right place for you? Just because it's the hot thing doesn't mean it's right for you. Who are your people? Where are they at? Right. And then we take a marketing stance on that. But as an entrepreneur in particular, but as anyone managing their own life, how come I'm doing it? What's the return I want to get on it? So a lot of things like exercise and healthy eating have a huge return personally, right? But posting a 4th time on social media each week, I do like 3, and I'm doing just fine, right? What does the 4th one get me? I haven't found that the 4th one gets me crap, so I don't do it, right? That might change later in my business, right? So we can always revisit, right? When something crops up and you feel the should, look at the should. Absolutely look at the should. Sometimes it's good advice, sometimes it's crap, right? So when you feel that, look at it, shine a light on it, understand it. And because if you don't do it, it kind of hangs on you. You're walking around with all these shoulds and your giant list, right? You probably got rid of 75% of that list. Yeah. And you do get rid of things that have a return. Just because it has a positive return on your investment, how much time to return is there? 100. So concentrate your time on what's working and make those tough decisions. And those things can apply to your personal life as well. Like you don't need to work out 4 hours a day. Would it be good for you? Yeah, it would. Would it be good for the relationships in your life? Not unless they're working out with you, right? Like, so, where do you draw that line? And it's not easy. We want the easy answer. We want it to be like, put in the math equation and make it work. But the nice thing is we do have our own supercomputer, which would be our, subconscious brain. So we have that conversation between our conscious and subconscious. I feel the should. Let's look at it, right? The lizard brain is giving me the should. Let's look at it so we can either discard it or embrace it in a way that serves our lives.
Beautiful. I love that. As far as a touchy subject that I think a lot of women deal with, which is why I want to bring this up. And I know that you work closely with solopreneurs in your business, which we're going to get to in a little bit. But I want to ask this question that I think hovers over all of the heads of especially female entrepreneurs. And that is, how much emphasis does one need to put on the profits, the money of our business? because so many of us get stuck in that process
Yeah.
of making sure everything's perfect. And then we forget that we need money coming
Yes.
to us.
Yes. I'm probably the worst person to answer this question. I do so much work for free. But I do think about it a lot. So part of the challenge for me is that I have a community, and I have put earning money from that community has become lower and you know what I mean? I've started to offer more and more free. That for me is a business model issue. So me personally as Heather, not as a person, but as a general person, but me as Heather, I can't do it. That's not what my community is for, and doesn't match with my values and all this other stuff. Plenty of people can make money off communities. It's not to say you shouldn't do that. This is me and my community and my own drama, right? So I was like, I'm never going to ask them for money. Like just a tiny bit. I charge a little bit for the sprints here, and for the amount of time I put in, it's not the revenue generator. So I'm pushing into the freelance marketing work, which is like you ask for something, we agree on a price, and I give it to you, right? I can do that because the nature of that relationship is an exchange one. It's not my community with people I filled with people I love and that I would just give to for free my whole life if I could still eat and pay the mortgage, right? So this is like looking at my own way of being in the world and what's gonna work for me. Women don't charge enough. They don't feel comfortable enough charging. They don't feel comfortable enough talking about money. So I love that you asked this question. I think you should keep asking this question and we should keep talking about it. I had a moment in a co-working session the other day where I'm doing a 2-week sprint and I do a Sunday sprint in the middle. And somebody's like, oh, is the Sunday sprint included in the 2-week sprint? And I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should do that. And one of my colleagues was like, Heather, I am an advocate for you getting paid for the work you do. You should charge for both. And I was like, oh God, I needed to hear that. Right. I was having a therapy moment right there. I was like, you just gave me a serious therapy moment. Thank you. I needed to hear that because I don't feel comfortable charging it. So if you don't feel comfortable charging, part of that's our conditioning as women. Part of that's our conditioning to serve and to be selfless and the whole thing. So shine the light on that and turn it into a problem to solve, right? Mm-hmm. So what does it look like for me to make a living off of what I'm doing and one that's fair? And I think we get, especially as women, I start to think if it's easy for me to do, I shouldn't charge that much for it. But a lot of things that are really easy for me to do are easy because I've been doing them for 15 years. And you get to charge not for the hour that you spent, but the 15 years plus 1 hour that you spent. And so that's really hard for us to wrap our mind around, especially once we've gotten good at it, right? We feel like a kind of a jerk for being like, I just charged you like $100, $200, $300 for 1 hour, 15 years in 1 hour.
Yeah.
It makes it really different. Still uncomfortable to do. I still suck at it. I still struggle with it all the time. So I think that struggle is real. And the more we talk about it and and if you hear somebody asking somebody else for something for free, do what my colleague did and be like, no. I see you. I know the value you provide. You deserve to be paid for it. Don't be asking for that stuff for free. And the person who was asking for it that's a super wonderful, supportive person was just, it just kind of came out. Another woman who probably is underpaid for like everything she does. Yep. Right. And so being around other people who will step in and say that and who will be a supportive person. And that other person who was like, oh yeah, you're right. If I want to do them both, I'll pay for them. Right. It was like this, it helped. I did nothing. Right. My community supported me and made sure that happened. And so I think be that for other people. Yeah. And always like, would you recommend, what would you advise somebody else? Now give yourself that back is really nice for us people who are there to serve other people and are conditioned to serve other people, right? Give the advice and then look at it and be like, oh, that was for me, wasn't it? And take that back in.
Yeah. 100%.
So I'm still working on it. Let me know if you've got any good tips for me.
I think the cycle has to start somewhere, because this is the thing. The reason that I think sometimes we have a hard time asking for money is, especially from other females, is because we know females aren't making as much. So it's kind of like this forever cycle that we're going to be in, where we know they don't have money, so we can't ask for money, but we are not, because we're not asking for money, then we still don't have the money. So then we can't then pay other women to help us with what we need, because what we're selling, we're not making any money off of, because so it's this whole cycle that we're in. I fell into this when I first started getting into entrepreneurship. I was in a toxic relationship. One of the very first programs, like real programs that I set up, was how to leave your husband in 365 days. And it was this financial like powerhouse of like the whole blueprint that I used to secretly escape my relationship. And I had it selling on an Instagram secretly and in a couple different places. And one of the issues that I had was women getting mad at me for selling it for this low price of, when I first started, it was $25 and it went up to $47. But this whole thought process of how dare you charge us to escape our relationship? We're being injured. We're being hurt. Like, you should be doing this for free. And I said over and over and over again, I even still have some TikToks because I still touch on narcissism. I still have the program for sale, but that's like way down in my feed, so it's not as, but anyways, my whole thought process and what I would be talking to these women about is like, we have to get out of the mindset of free, because what happens is women who are in a bad spot right now are reading your comments in real life. They're going to get out of their relationship maybe, and then just so that they don't ever have to hear another woman tell us that we're greedy or how dare us or this is rude, they will never ask for the price that they deserve for anything that they're doing, because they don't ever want to be told that they're rude or how dare they.
Yeah.
So it's this, we're doing it almost to ourselves, as far as this constant cycle of, we have all of this value. We have all of these things. We have like things that we know, but we can't charge for it because we don't want another woman to ever tell us, how dare I? So then we're just stuck. Same.
Right. And one of the things we talk to my solopreneurs is you can always offer a scholarship, because maybe there is somebody out there who can't scrape together the $47, or they don't have control of their finances at all. Yeah. Right. So, you put out there and you state what the value is, and you can always offer a discount for this, a scholarship for that. Like, these are options for you. If you're, we have this tendency to make a decision based on the person in the roughest spot that we might serve. And it's like, no, you make the decision based on your general, your target market, your bigger target market. And when you find those things there, then you create a space for that, if that's something that you want to do. Yeah. So I have, a scholarship option for my sprints, and they're not that expensive, but if you're on a tight budget, there's a million reasons why you might be. Not a problem. And I limit the number of spots, so I can still, make the money and do the whatever, but like, don't change the entire thing of what you offer, or change the value of what you offer because one person might be suffering. Embrace that person, embrace that suffering that they're going through, create a space for them if that's appropriate, and put a scholarship slot out there or something like that. There's another way to go about it without turning somebody away, especially somebody in need, which can be a really hard thing to do. And maybe they're not for you also. It's okay to also say no to that, right? You've got to get yourself out of whatever situation it is that you're in. And for us not to trust each other to be responsible for our own lives, it's just one of those things. I have to take care of you because you can't take care of yourself. It's a really unhealthy message that we give to each other all the time. Like, it's like, it's okay. Somebody else can take care of themselves. And if they can't, sometimes the way you take care of yourself is by asking for help. So they can reach out to you and say, I can't afford this. I was hoping that, I could pay you back in another way, or you could give me a scholarship, and a year from 365 days from now, I'll pay you. Or right. There's a million different ways we can all solve our own problems. So trust each other to solve each other's problems.
100.
And because I'm sure if somebody had messaged you and said, in 365 days, I promise I will pay you, you probably would have let them in.
Yeah. 100.
Would have done it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And it did go out free to handfuls of people, dozens of people, who just, direct messaged me or, really reached out wholeheartedly or whatever it was. It was like, girl, yes. But yeah, to that whole mindset thing, it's definitely something that we really need to break out of. So I want to ask, we have quite a few people watching live here. Thank you so much for being here, watching live, wherever you're at. If you could share this video with your community, we would so appreciate that, so we can get more eyes on the content here of the podcast, Her Version. If you are watching on the replay, please hashtag replay wherever you're watching us at, so we can send you some love. But I want to ask Heather, we've talked so much about business, solopreneurship, procrastination, the inner talk, all the goodness. I would love for you just to kind of give us a rundown of exactly what you do, exactly who you are, who you help, and where people can find you.
Great. So my business is called GoGoDone, and the best way for people to get in touch, you can email me, heather@gogodone.com, if you want to talk about productivity, motivation, marketing, all of that stuff. I'm a real person at the real other end of that. Like I'm all for nerding out on those topics anytime, all the time. If you want to co-work with us, we have a free co-working community. So you can go to the website, gogodone.com, and look for the community tab. And we have a Slack group and then a Google Calendar and all of that. And it's a really supportive, warm, fuzzy kind of place to be. We support each other. And there's plenty of people who, we use the term co-working loosely. You can we have people who do yoga during that time, right? It's a little bit of accountability buddy kind of situation. Lots of content creators in there. And then I do freelance marketing work as well. And we have a group, kind of a premium community from that community that are solopreneurs getting accountability for their marketing in general, but especially social media marketing. When you're just starting to build an audience, you post and nobody likes it, and you're posting to nowhere. And so we do a little bit of boosting each other. There's some educational components, there's outreach components, and a community to grow your business with, because solopreneurs, really isolating kind of place to be. So all kinds of things to play with. Definitely email me, definitely join our co-working community. And if you're interested as a solopreneur in growing your business, I'd say just email me and we can have a deeper conversation on that. But do come play with us in the co-working community. It's a lot of fun and really lovely, lovely people to spend your time with.
I love that. Where do you hang out predominantly on social media? So anyone who wants to follow you.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the place to find me. I think I technically have a Facebook site and a couple of other places, but LinkedIn's really that's where my ROI is, right? I don't need to be on all sites. LinkedIn is really where I get the most bang for my buck, where I'm hanging out the most and where I'm having the most conversations. So you can just find me, just search for my name in there, and I should pop right up. And I would love to connect with anybody out there. If you found this information exciting and interesting, I definitely want to be connected with you, because this is the kind of stuff that I like to swim around in every day. So let's connect for sure.
Beautiful. And what are your big dreams for your business?
Oh, I think my biggest dreams are really around work-life balance. I have such a beautiful community already for my coworkers. Like, they're a gift to me every day. So growing there it's one of those things where we have this idea that bigger is better, but I need the right people. Like, I don't need any trolls in there. Like, we are such a warm and compassionate group. And so that is a place where growth is slow, and people aren't good at showing up and doing that. It's not a right fit for everybody. So my dream for that is its own slow growth through our own personal relationships and the people who it's a fit for. Not everybody wants to do the co-working. So that's really the juiciest part of what I do, and not somewhere where I can force growth, that kind of thing. And then for freelance marketing work is just to find people who are a good values match and to have fun and do work that we're both passionate about, both sides are passionate about.
That's beautiful. Awesome. Well, I so appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, sharing some of your value, goodness, nuggets of information to be able to really help those that are struggling in this area. Give them a hand up, help them level up. So I so appreciate taking some time out of your day to do that. Any closing thoughts before we wrap?
I think just really appreciate you having me here. I really appreciate you having these conversations and bringing up topics that people are a lot of times afraid to bring up, that people might feel are divisive, and for giving space for that different perspectives and different and disagreements. And it doesn't mean we can't hang out together and disagree. I don't think we've disagreed on anything, though.
100. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you. For those of you watching live or on the replay, if you resonated with Heather and all of the goodness that she shared today, make sure that you check her out at her website, gogodone.com. It is above her head area, and then also in the description wherever you are watching us at. She predominantly hangs out on LinkedIn, so find her. Heather, her last name is spelled Chavin, V as in Victor. drop into her DMs and say hello. We love to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure that we all continue to rise. Thank you so much for joining us here on this day, Her Version. This is a community that is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have a story to share, reach out to me at hernation.com. My name is Sabrina Victoria. I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows individuals to share their truth and inspire others. Until next time.